So I think it's funny. I'm not sure that James Baldwin ever really came back to New York in the way that we are now New Yorkers. I think that he owned a house, and I think that he bought and his mother lived in it. I count that as Mrs. Baldwin's house. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that James Baldwin came as a personage to that house or as a son to that house. But I think that he bought the property, but it was not his home per se. I think the home for him that seems most like a home was the one in Saint Paul de Vence, and that place. Oh, you think not?
Well, his personal life was always a mess, so he never bought that house.
Are you trying to get back at me for the thing about from the France thing? I'm sorry.
No, there's no getting
I'm
back.
sorry.
I forgot now what I was going to say.
I think that one of the things we know about that house is that everybody was all up in it.
Yes.
So there were people who lived there more than James Baldwin did, most certainly, and there are very, very famous people who visited there, and people that you've never heard of who visited there and stayed for good long whiles. And I know that his room in it was the least attractive place in the house. So he would go down to what he called the dungeon to do his late night. But he was certainly a person who was able to write in multiple locations. So
yes, because he was starting and stopping and starting over. I had no idea he wrote The Fire Next Time in Istanbul. So I think that the difference I thought between their early essays and the late essays of something more patient and hopeful and something bitter and disappointed actually has to do with something else, which is density of thought and language. And the essays he wrote abroad at first, he's thrown back on his own language, thrown back on his own experience. He doesn't know French well enough yet. He certainly never learned Turkish. So the English is all in his head. This is his sort of world. And you look at the early essays and the density of the language and the clauses and the rhythm, they sort of say a lot about writing them over and over and over and over again. And I can't decide if he was the kind of writer who didn't know what he thought until he wrote it down,